Good evening to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here. It is 10:47 p.m. Eastern Time on the, what is today? Saturday, the 8th day of September. Saturday night. A late update. What I'm going to do is record this live. You know, I'm recording it as it's happening. Obviously, it's a screencast, but what I'm going to be doing is just, instead of looking over the material of the 11 o'clock advisory package on the various systems by myself, so to speak, I'm going to record doing that and tell you about it. I'm going to explain it because there are some important changes that I want to talk about. So let's just take a look out there. The information on Florence, not quite updated yet. It is on Helene, and we'll just look at that headline real quick. Tropical storm conditions for portions of the Cabo Verde Islands on Sunday. Not a lot of people live out there, but and I don't know if anybody lives there that watches these videos. But this is unusual, and if we look at the map, it's going to bring tropical storm conditions here, Tropical Storm Helene, to the southernmost areas of the Cabo Verde Islands. We used to call them the Cape Verde Islands, and then, with any amount of luck, Helene will turn out into the Atlantic, but you never know how that ends up, do you? I mean, just look at what's happening with Florence. Isaac, though, is a little bit more pressing, and the headline on this, it is strengthening over the eastern tropical Atlantic. The statistics here clearly indicating winds are up to 50 miles per hour. It's moving west at 8, which is not very fast, and the pressure is 1,002 millibars. I don't know if the map is updated yet. Not quite. Let's just refresh this to see. That's fine. The 5-day position, actually we can go look at the forecast advisory because this is out, and we can scroll down to the bottom. This is what the different tracking map generation software programs use. Usually they scrape this data, you get wind radii and other information, and we can look in here, and there is the 5-day position. Even the 4-day position is important. 14.6, 57 west, 15 north, 62.9 west, 75 knots. So 90 miles per hour here, 80 knots, 75 miles per hour, which is 75 knots, which is 85 miles per hour. Where is that on a map? Let's just show you. This is important for you folks down in the Windward and Leeward Islands. There's 15 degrees latitude and 62 and some change. So the 5-day position, somewhere in here for the center. So possible hurricane conditions over days 4 and 5, something like that, in the Lesser Antilles, and the cone of uncertainty extending up here through the areas impacted last year by the hurricanes that we remember so well, painfully so, and this may spread if it gains enough latitude close enough to the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, maybe Puerto Rico. Remember, you don't have to have a direct landfall to have direct impacts, rain, surf, gusty winds, etc. So we need to follow this closely. At least we have time to do so. So let's see if the information on Florence has updated. Not quite yet. So while we're waiting, and all of this, just to show you, this is still the 5 p.m., which is Atlantic Standard Time, the same thing as Eastern Daylight Time, and I'm looking for the 11 o'clock. It will come out. There's the forecast advisory. So let's wait because I want to show you the public and so forth and the map. Before we get to that, let me show you the satellite presentation. Florence doesn't look that healthy. The convection kind of disappearing a little bit, and maybe that's why it has tracked a little south of due west as of late. But the environment out ahead of it, all the way to the coast, is going to be very conducive for development. This is Isaac. This is Helene. Isaac, again, destined for somewhere in this vicinity over the next few days in terms of the center passing. And again, to remind you, you could have effects all the way up here into parts of Barbuda, spreading over to Antigua, possibly, and then St. Bartolome, maybe, U.S. British Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico. Keep an eye on this, because any deviation to the north, and you could have direct impacts from yet another hurricane. Too soon to know for sure, so please stay on top of it. A couple other things relating to Florence. This is really important. The zero UTC, what we call zero Z, spaghetti models, and these are the different models you see over here from this particular site that plots them. This is from the National Center for Atmospheric Research, NCAR, and their real-time analysis and guidance site. And that is a very tightly clustered envelope, folks. That is really, really a signature of confidence in the forecast. That's good in that you want there to be confidence so that you can focus on an area and get them prepared. It's obviously bad or negative because the overall envelope that you see, you can just put an arrow on the end of it and it's pointed at eastern North Carolina. But that is an amazing clustering. And you say, well, what about these? Forget them. There's not even going to explain them. They're non-important models, really, especially in this situation. But this is very tightly clustered at day 5, days 4 and 5 even, towards eastern North Carolina. Very interesting. We'll see if that's mentioned in the update here in a moment. Also, very concerning, the H-WRF model, Hurricane Weather Research Forecast model, just touching on Category 5. The blue one here, I think it's COTI. I need to research that one and find out more about it. A very sobering trend up into the Category 5 range. It doesn't at all, it will not surprise me at all if this becomes a Cat 5 at some point. Why not? Conditions should be very ripe. Usually when they approach land, they start to weaken. So we'll just take it one day at a time. All right, let's check out the advisory package info, and it's ready. All right, so Florence still moving slowly, expected to become a hurricane at any time soon. 989 on the pressure, 70 miles per hour on the wind. West at 6 miles per hour. So it's moving west, but let's check out the actual bearing. All right, so here is the information, and it's 270, so they're saying it's moving at due west. Some of the satellite imagery suggested maybe just south of due west, but we're not going to nitpick over that right now. It could have implications later down the road in terms of where it lands later. You know, like if you aim a rifle and you just have it millimeters off your target, you miss. And in cases like this, any south of west motion could have the difference between landfall in, you know, town A versus town B. We'll just call it that. But we won't put too much into that right now. And the rest of the stats, etc., I want to show you hazards affecting land. This will become more and more populated with hazards. We begin, as always, it seems, with surf. And this is from Lixian Avila, or Avila. I've never asked him exactly how you say it. I've known this gentleman since 1999. Anyhow, never asked him. I know he's from Cuba. Nevertheless, swells generated by Florence are affecting Bermuda and are beginning to reach portions of the U.S. East Coast. These swells are likely to cause life-threatening surf and rip current conditions. So please, folks, pay that very close attention. You're going to head out to the beach. Water temperatures are in the low to mid-80s along the southeast. It's wonderful out there. It honestly is. But that surf can be deadly. And that is a very, very serious first sort of attack. The front line, if you will, is the surf. And then the rest will come. Rain, wind, surge, tornadoes, downbursts. It's just going to get ugly from here. And I'm going to be speaking very frankly from here on out. If I see any rays of hope, I'm going to share them with you. Normally I'm very subdued, and we'll see what happens, and I'm not going to jump up and down screaming, and I'll never do that. Too old for that. But seriously, this has to be taken very seriously. And so we're going to approach it as such. The discussion is out. That is fantastic. Let me blow it up for my aging eyes. All right. Satellite images indicate that the cloud pattern has continued to gradually become better organized with an eye feature. That's interesting. I'll highlight things that jump out at me. Trying to form. An average of all the Dvorak satellite, and that's just a way that they measure intensity using satellites. Satellite intensity estimates tonight suggest that Florence is not a hurricane yet, okay? But it's close to being one. The initial intensity is kept at 60 knots in this advisory, and a recent ASCAT data showed less winds than previously observed by the NOAA plane when the cloud pattern was less organized. The recent, so less, I'm not sure I understand what that means, but that's fine. Let's move on. There is a band of convection trying to wrap around a possible eye feature and that is an indication that Florence has continued to recover from the hostile shear environment, which brought the hurricane from Category 4 to a tropical storm in a matter of a day or so. The presence of developing upper-level outflow is a good indication that the shear has decreased, and with the presence of a warm ocean ahead, strengthening is anticipated. As indicated by my predecessor, the official forecast continues to call for a period of rapid intensification. That's never a good sign. In about 12 to 24 hours, and Florence is expected to reach major hurricane intensity between 36 and 48 hours, with additional strengthening thereafter. It is forecast to be an intense hurricane on days 3 through 5 as it moves across the warm waters of the southwestern Atlantic Ocean between the Bahamas and Bermuda, and then as it heads toward the southeast United States coast. Steering part. Florence is still trapped within very light steering currents and is slowly moving towards the west, or 270 degrees at 5 knots. All indications are that this is about to change as a strong ridge of high pressure builds to the north of the hurricane, well, soon to be hurricane. This forecast flow pattern predicted by the global models will force Florence on a general west-northwest to northwest track with an increase in forward speed. So this is going to be interesting to watch here, very important. The NHC forecast is basically on top of the previous one and is in the middle of the narrow guidance envelope, which I just showed you, a part of it anyway. That wasn't all of the models that I showed you, but that narrow guidance envelope mainly for the next 3 to 4 days. By the end of the forecast period, when the soon-to-be hurricane is approaching the U.S. coast, the guidance envelope is wider and becomes bounded by the northernmost GFS and the southernmost HCCA and the FSSE ensembles, fancy names for sophisticated, supercomputer-driven, hopefully, I guess, big-time ensembles that really help them get a grasp on things. So on the north side is the GFS, on the southern part of that envelope. And remember, the envelope is, this is your cone of all your different spaghetti plots, right? And so then you would take, this is your envelope. And so GFS is up here on the northern part, and all the rest, we'll just call it A for all the rest. Terrible drawing, but that's what he's talking about. The envelope of guidance. GFS on the northern side. All right. One thing all the models coincide at the longer range is with the collapsing of the steering currents, resulting in a significant reduction of the forward speed of the, at that point, hurricane. We'll have to address this tomorrow because I'm seeing some signs of something extremely disturbing, and I got to digest it and see what it shows tonight, etc., before I go jumping off that particular cliff. Just think flood threat, okay? And prolonged misery. Key messages. Florence is forecast to be a dangerous major hurricane near the southeast coast. The risk of direct impacts continues to increase. However, given the uncertainty in track and intensity, etc., it's too soon to determine, and you know this, the exact timing, location, and magnitude of the impacts. All the interest particularly from North Florida through North Carolina. It's interesting that they don't mention Virginia at all. Still. So that's interesting. Everybody in this area, be ready. Large swells, we already talked about that, but we should reiterate it again. Be careful, be careful, be careful. All right, a couple things that I want to touch upon in the guidance. I already showed you the different tracks. And again, there's a look at that envelope that he's talking about. And this is just a part of it. This doesn't show the global models per se. It has some ensemble means in there, I do believe. Right there, that AEMI interpolated, etc. But that's a very tight envelope. We looked at the intensity. Now, here's the upper ocean heat content. And this is mentioned in terms of the warmth. And this stopped updating after September 2nd from the Hurricane Research Division, NOAA AOML site. Kind of unfortunate. I'm going to send a message to one of the scientists down there and ask them to jumpstart it again. It's only 6 days old, so to speak. A lot of ocean heat content sitting out here, and especially so right here closest to the United States. That's not good. And this is just deep, warm water. Very deep. Well, not very deep. I don't know how deep it goes, but it's warm water that's not just at the surface where you could just blow it and it cools off like a cup of coffee. Nope. You churn up more warm water. That's what that shows. And just to give you an idea of departures from normal, how many times have we looked at this year? Remember all the blue that was over here for months and weeks, it seemed, and all the hoopla about, this is reduced hurricane activity, blah, blah, blah. We have a long way to go to understand even more about what happens with hurricanes, because we got Helene out here that's almost a hurricane. Isaac's developing in here, and all of that's in that MDR, the main development region, that just a few weeks ago everybody was talking about how cold it was relative to average. To the point about what's happening close to the U.S., and I'll wrap things up with this, as Florence approaches somewhere in this vicinity, just spitballing it here for you, 1 degree Celsius above normal down to maybe a quarter degree closer to the coast. It's hard to describe what 1 Celsius means in terms of sensible to you. If I said, please turn the bathwater 1 Celsius higher, would you notice a difference? Probably not, but the hurricane does, and that's where you get into thermodynamics, and I probably lose myself trying to explain it. 1 degree Celsius is a tremendous addition of extra energy. Trust me. And the Atlantic is loaded for bear. Look at all of this up here. And that's what I'm saying. This is not hype. This is not trying to scare you. This is where it comes down to, yep, we have a hurricane. We have the warmer than normal water. We have the exceptionally strong ridging. It's called, this one's like a ridge runner, where it goes to the south of that ridge. The ingredients are in place for this to become a substantial disaster for somewhere, and maybe a lot of somewheres along the southeast coast. I will be on top of it. Hopefully 2 video discussions and a little bit of a mini blog, like a paragraph or 2, twice a day. That's what I'm going to try to do. You can follow me on Twitter, and I will be posting tidbits there from time to time as well. Subscribe on YouTube if you're watching. Set the alerts to notify me when I do an update, and you'll know. And for our Patreon members and the folks that have our app on iOS, I'll be posting updates there as well. I'm not trying to be like exclusive where I post something for somebody that could be helpful just because they paid money. No. Not going to do that. But I'm just making sure that the people that are supporting what I do have that little extra edge. And but my first interest is definitely for the public, and that's why I make these videos. It's like Facebook, and I know this might be a bad analogy with all the negative stuff that Facebook's had, but I think of that slogan when you log in. It says Facebook, free and always will be. And I know that, free and whatever, right? But honestly, these videos, I will always produce them at no cost whatsoever and try to get them out to you as quickly as possible. That you can count on. And, the support that people give me through Patreon and the purchase of the app and other ways, it helps to pay the bills. So thank you very much. So, follow on Twitter, please. Subscribe on the YouTubes. And I'll keep doing the best I can. I'm going to try to get some sleep tonight, and I'll be back at it tomorrow. Thanks for watching. That's all I've got for now. Mark Sudduth. You know what? Doggone it. I would not be doing my job if I didn't talk about Olivia. That would just be an insult to the people in Hawaii, and I'm just not going to do it, okay? Not going to screw up that bad. Real quick, where are you? Oh, there it is. Hurricane Olivia heading to the Central Pacific Ocean. This will become the Central Pacific Hurricane Center. Yeah, I almost blew it. I was 99% of the way to blowing it. Central PAC Hurricane Center will have the next advisory. 2 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time was the last advisory. Basically, what I want to show you is the track map. The good news is this will weaken below hurricane intensity almost certainly. The bad news is there could be some pretty strong upslope wind and rain, and so you folks in Hawaii definitely prepare for this. Don't look at Lane and say, well, nothing happened with Lane to speak of, depending on where you were. I'm not going to worry about Olivia. Every one of these is different. Take it seriously. Follow the advice of your local officials, and I'll talk about it some more tomorrow as well. There's really just not much to analyze with Olivia. It's a matter of how much precipitation is left and what's left of the circulation as it closes in, and that is still between 3 and 4 days away, so we have a little bit of time to examine that. And I will, and I won't almost forget it next time. In fact, I'll talk about it first on tomorrow's update. Now I'm done. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. Yes, thank you for watching. I'll be back with more for you on Sunday.